I just got done watching a video by the goddess known as Mexi. I'll link to it down below, although I don't know how to use YouTube, so I might not be able to, but I think I can do it. Below, that means below. So basically, in this video, she was outlining a lecture done by a leftist economist. I can't remember the guy's name. And the whole premise of the video is that capitalism as we know it is basically horseshit. And I thought I would add my own useless opinions and kind of tag onto that video. I think she admittedly would say that her video is not as good as the video she was describing, and mine isn't anywhere nearly as valuable as hers, so this is like the third rung down of leftists' bullshit. So, whenever you're arguing with neckbeards online, be they neoliberals or full diehard capitalists or the worst of the libertarians who are really anarchists and closet tyrants, the number one thing you always hear is, read an economics book. Why don't you take an economics class, you cucktard, lib cuck. Anyway, I'm going to give you a helicopter ride. That's what they say. But anyway, I have taken many economics courses in college for part of my useless degree that I couldn't finish 2 semesters before I graduated because the government decided I had reached my borrowing limit. Good old USA. So I'm pretty familiar with economics, and by economics, what they mean is capitalism. They teach you the free market, the rules of the free market, all of which are a series of non sequiturs upon non sequitur upon non sequitur. I mean, you don't have to dig very deep to see why most of what's taught in economics is bullshit. And I didn't realize that when I went into the course. I thought that I was going to learn this kind of economics, what this school is, all that. But no, they teach you a very narrow view of how things are supposed to work and call that economics. It's prescriptive. It's not descriptive. In fact, I had for one of my micro classes, the professor started by macroeconomics, explaining the Austrian school, the laissez-faire, and Marxian economics. And the entirety of the description of Marxian economics was my grandmother, this is the professor talking, my grandmother and great-grandmother lived in Russia during communism, and they suffered very much. Do you get what I'm saying? And the whole class was quiet, and she was like, a lot of people have suffered under that system. Anyway, and that was it. That was Marxist economics. That was your lesson. The rest of the course was all how to be a good capitalist. So when you think you're going to, when you go and you think you're going to learn about economics, you're not. You're going to learn about how to be a good practitioner of free market capitalism, allegedly free market capitalism. And what you quickly learn is that it's got very little semblance to reality. And there are better videos, books, articles you can read to understand that besides watching this. What I want to talk about are my anecdotal experiences, such as the one I just described with my professor. That same professor told me one day, I said that, I raised my hand and I asked, well, if a firm has, everybody's working to produce excess, and then the excess goes into a big pool called profit, and then that profit is always skimmed off and distributed elsewhere, doesn't that contradict the whole idea of the incentive to work? Something like that. We were like 40 minutes into a lecture. It was relevant. Anyway, she said just making that remark betrayed a Marxian leaning in my thinking. And that was her answer. You're a Marxist. And then we continue. And she was actually cool. She was a cool professor. But it's not relevant. Any externalities to free market capitalism is considered not relevant to the discussion of economics, which is insane. It's insane. So there's that. And I had a similar experience, I believe the next semester. We were talking about free trade, so-called free trade agreements. And the idea behind those is that if each country specializes in what they produce best, and trade those goods with each other, there's a little bit extra surplus created, which is, it's true on paper, the way the curves work. You can only pinch out a little bit extra in the margin if you reduce costs. The math works out. But I pointed out that, well, okay, but then each country that's participating is going to have like one industry, monocult. They're going to be dependent on this trade, and they're not going to be able to produce the things that they need without having to trade for it, which weakens the integrity of all the different countries participating. And he said, well, in a perfect market, you could just trade for those things cheaper from somewhere else, which isn't an answer. Or at least it doesn't address, the idea that you're going to just continue to trade your way out of the deficits that you've created due to your insistence on specialized free trade doesn't make any goddamn sense. But again, it's prescriptive. They're telling you how it's going to be. They're not describing how economics works, how money actually works. And then the last thing I want to mention was I recently got into hunting. Now I'm teaching myself. I don't have any good friendly rednecks who are going to take me out. No offense, rednecks, God bless. But I'm doing it myself, so I decided to start with squirrels because I can handle a squirrel. I'm not going to go out there looking for some deer that I don't know how to quarter, and I got to try and carry it back by myself. It's too much, so I'm just going to go after squirrels, maybe like a fox or something, until I learn the basics. And then like next year I'll get a good friend and we'll go, So when you apply for a license in PA, you're automatically given a tag for a whitetail deer, which I have no use for, but I needed a small game rifle, 22 or something. So I thought to myself, maybe I'll just find some hunter who's been doing this for years, give him my deer tag, and then he'll just give me his old 22 that he doesn't use anymore. Maybe I'll throw him $20 something. Turns out you're not allowed to do that. It's against the law. Whatever. So I didn't. Pennsylvania Game Commission. But it occurred to me that, the idea of the free market, at least as put forth by Ann Coulter and Ben Shapiro and these guys, is that I have something I want, or you have something I want, I have something you want. And when we trade, this magical thing happens where, because we both value what the other person has more than we value what we have, extra wealth is just created, almost like a miracle. It's like a religious belief that exchange in and of itself generates more wealth, because you're trading something you don't value for something you do value. They're doing the same thing. Therefore, you inherently both walk away with more value being created. And it occurred to me that, to take my example, everybody knows what a 22 costs. Everybody knows what a deer tag is. It's not worth anything. But even assuming it was legal and there was a market for it, which the price would certainly be set. Everybody knows what everything costs. So even if this guy wanted my deer tag more than his 22 and vice versa, he may not make that trade just because he knows, wait a minute, that deer tag is only worth like $50. This rifle's worth $98. I'm not going to make that trade. That's not a good trade. Even though he actually needs the tag and doesn't need the rifle. And I'm in the exact opposite situation, the inverse situation. It's supposed to generate wealth. But we live in a society, in a globe, where everybody knows the price of everything. Everybody knows everybody's price. There is no subjective value to different people. So the whole idea of like exchanging goods and thereby creating value because you value something more than that whole fucking thing, which is the basis of the free market and the magic of the free market, doesn't apply. And that's just one example. Everything else in capitalism, the narrow definition, is like that. It's all non sequiturs. It's all shit that works on paper and doesn't stand up to anything in the observable economy. So think about that. Don't take their bullshit for granted. And if some fat fuck with a neck beard tells you, you need to read an economics book, you should know what you're talking about. But they don't fucking know what they're talking about either. They're parroting some Ayn Rand horse shit that doesn't have any relevance to anything. And if these libertarians think that free markets solve all woes, then they haven't been paying attention to, well, I can't get started on them. But don't believe the horse shit. Bernie would have won. Peace.